Good morning. Welcome to this live streaming service of the First Unitarian Church in Alton, Illinois. We are a small lay-led congregation with a long history in Alton, dating back to the 1830s. Our church building is on a hill overlooking the mighty Mississippi River. My name is Mary Johnson, and I'm serving as the worship associate this morning for our speaker, Jerry Johnson. We welcome each of you, wherever you are, and we are so glad that you've chosen to join us today. This is a special month in the history of our church, and the next 3 slides will trace the history of this congregation's church home. The first photo is of our first church building, located right here where we are today. Notice the elm tree and the stone wall, which are still part of our landscape. That church was dedicated in October 14, 1855, in a grand celebration with Unitarian dignitaries and prominent Altonians attending. This photo was probably taken in the 1880s. The building on the left is the parsonage, built in 1878. It was replaced in the late 1960s by our religious education wing. The second photo is probably from 1904. In 1903, the congregation voted to have the 1855 church demolished and a new one built on the same property. It is said that when the demolition began, there was evidence of burned slats on the ceiling above the furnace. So for whatever reason they decided to rebuild, it was probably the right decision. Or like the Catholic Church that burned on this spot in 1854, the Unitarian Church might also have caught on fire. This is a postcard from 1909 of the new church, our current church. This church was dedicated on October 29, 1905, 50 years after the original church. So for 166 years, Unitarians have been coming to this hill every Sunday to celebrate what they value and hold to be true. We begin our worship service with a prelude by our accompanist, Joy Heft. If you have a chalice or a candle, please light it now as I light our chalice here, and we say together the words displayed on the screen. As the kindling of this chalice calls us to community, as the flame of this chalice reminds us of our values, as the glow of this chalice encourages us to hope, let there be light. Our opening words are by Patrick Murphin. He is a social justice advocate and a member of the Congregational Unitarian Church of Woodstock, Illinois. He writes, "We believe that many streams join to make a river, that the way to wisdom lies in an open ear and heart, that goodness may be pursued for the sake of goodness and not from fear of punishment, that knowing and not knowing are part of the saying, and ambiguity is permissible." Please join in singing our opening hymn, "Here We Have Gathered," number 360 in the gray hymnal and displayed on your screen. The reading this morning is entitled "Other Truths" by the Reverend Orlando Brugnala. Reverend Brugnala was a UU minister and advocate of interfaith dialogue. She wrote, "It is often comforting to distinguish what we believe from what others believe. It is one of the ways we remind ourselves of what we stand for. May we know the inescapable arrogance of that. May we seek to temper our hearts with respect for others and with a sense of the grandness of so many human strivings toward what may be called the divine. May we know ourselves touched by the truth learned first by others, as well as those which are organized in our own souls. May we seek those truths which most clearly and most compassionately offer structure to our understanding. May we encourage all those who seek with us or without us." At this time in our service, we pause to reflect on our week, recalling the milestones, the joys, concerns, sorrows, and the changes in our lives. and remember those who need our healing thoughts. If you have something you would like to share, and if you are watching this streaming service live, you may share in the chat column on your screen. One joy this morning is the wedding of Paul Fisher and Jen Nagel. They were married yesterday afternoon here at our church with Eric Johnson officiating, and the candles and some of the fall decorations you see around were from their wedding. Also, Jim Moore is recuperating at home from surgery, and our thoughts and good wishes go out to him and Pat. And I'd like to give a shout out to our Sunday morning team, Joy Heft as music coordinator, accompanist, and slide designer, and Ken and Alex Heft as the tech team, whose knowledge, skill, and expertise make it possible for our church to produce and transmit these virtual services, which we've been doing every Sunday since March 15th of 2020. Thanks to each of you. Let us now enter a time of silence. The meditation for this morning is entitled Go Boldly. May you be brave enough to expose your aching woundedness and reveal your vulnerability. May you speak your deepest truths, knowing that they will change as you do. May you sing the music within you, composing your own melody, playing your song with all your heart. May you draw, paint, sculpt, and sew, showing the world your vision. May you write letters, poetry, biography, slogans, graffiti, the great novel, laying bare your words to love and hate. May you love even though your heart breaks again and again. And until the end of your days, may your life be filled with possibilities and courage.
Today's story for all ages is entitled Faith Like a Walking Stick, and it was written by Gary Kowalski. How many of you like to go hiking? I have a number of walks nearby that I like. If we don't want to drive far, my wife and I just go down to our local park, where in just a few steps you can forget that you're in an urban setting. Sometimes we used to bring our dog Perky along, and she used to slow us down. But now I slow down because I'm not as young or as fast as I used to be. A walk in the woods isn't a race after all. It's not all about seeing how fast you can go or how quickly you can get to the end of the trail. A walk can be like a meditation, a series of moments to be aware of all the sights and sounds along the way. If you're in too big a hurry, you forget to hear the birds sing, and might not see that little mushroom growing under the tree, the one with the yellow cap. But even when you take your walk, a walk can sometimes be tough going. What if it starts to rain? And what if there's a wet, soggy, boggy place where the stepping stones are few and far between? Well, in those cases, I found a couple of things that help. First of all, it helps to have a friend or two along, because then, even if it starts to pour and the raindrops are trickling down your nose, you can always sing a song together, and it's hard to feel sorry for yourself when you're singing an old Beatles song. And for those soggy, boggy places, if you can't have a friend along, there's nothing like a walking stick, which helps you keep your balance and whether you're walking uphill or down makes you a little steadier on your legs. Walking sticks make me think about our faith, Unitarian Universalism, which is a little different from other religions. Because for us, life is like a long walk or a journey. It starts when we're little children and just learning about our world, and then grows as we grow. With each step, we're always gathering more information and gaining more experiences, finding out about ourselves, and as we explore, our beliefs change. The things we imagine might be true when we're 6 years old are different from the dreams we have when we're 60. And none of us is just certain where or how the trail ends, or what we'll find when we finally reach the mountaintop. But we know that other people have walked this way before, and that gives us hope and courage to continue the adventure. Now, just like on a long trail, life sometimes gets a little tough and can even be scary, and that's why it helps to have friends in a spiritual community like this one. And at times we start to lose our balance and begin to fall down. Then it's handy to have a walking stick along. Unitarian Universalism, our religion, is like a walking stick. It's not a religion that solves all our problems. It's not a religion that can magically lift us over the muddy places. It's not a religion that spares us the necessity to dig deep and struggle when there's a big boulder we have to climb over or other challenges come along. But it is a religion that helps us keep our equilibrium and helps us keep our feet on the ground, which reminds us each of us is that each of us is resilient, each of us is capable, however we identify our gender, our ethnicity, our race, whether we're big or little. And Unitarian Universalism is a faith that encourages each one of us to find and make our own beliefs, not a one-size-fits-all religion, but one we constantly tool and retool as we go. So this is my personal walking stick. And it has my name on it, but each of you will have the opportunity to make your own, just the right size and weight, the right thickness, so you will have a firm grip to help you get wherever you need to go. And as Unitarian Universalists, you can find and make a religion you can call your own. Please join me in singing our second hymn, Come Sing a Song With Me, number 346 in the gray hymnal and displayed on the screen. sermon this morning is entitled A River or a Rock? The Meanings of Religious Truth, and it was written by Reverend Tim Temerson. Part 1. I want to begin this morning with what has to be one of the most frequently heard statements about Unitarian Universalism. This statement is offered by some as a reason to celebrate our faith, while others make the exact opposite, the exact same statement to point out a very serious flaw in Unitarian Universalism. In Unitarian Universalism, you can believe whatever you want. I'm curious, how many here have heard this statement before or perhaps offered it themselves when trying to describe or explain Unitarian Universalism? For those who offer these words as a compliment, Unitarian Universalism is all about individual freedom, the freedom to be seen, to seek, to explore, to question, to believe what your heart and mind tell you is true. And that freedom is at the heart of our faith and is best exemplified by Unitarian Universalists' lack of a creed or single test of faith that one must accept in order to be a UU. For those who offer this same statement as a criticism of Unitarian Universalism, I think it's fair to say that they view religions like ours as being too individualistic and too subjective. The absence of a creed that we UUs view as being a positive strength is in fact a glaring weakness, because people need an anchor to anchor their lives in some kind of overarching certainty and truth about the meaning and purpose of existence. Now at this point, I could easily launch into one of my favorite sermon topics that can be boiled down to freedom good, creeds bad. I've preached that sermon many times before and will undoubtedly do so again. But I want to do something a little different today. Rather than simply celebrating our commitment to religious freedom and our rejection of creeds and doctrines, I want to take some time to explore with you the philosophical and theological roots of our approach to religion, and especially our understanding of religious truth. Too often in Unitarian Universalism, I think we skip over this step instead of jumping right to we don't like creeds, or we can believe whatever we want, without ever taking the time to understand why. So let's begin this whole question of religious truth. What exactly is it, and where does it come from? Is there one truth, many truths, or no truth at all? And why exactly do we Unitarian Universalists reject creeds? Is it because we simply don't agree with the specific content of existing creeds, or is it because there is something about creeds in general that doesn't fit with our understanding of the nature and meaning of truth? As we consider these questions, I want to begin with that story you heard a few minutes ago. I first encountered it in a class I took in seminary on the history and development of the Jewish tradition. In that class, we learned about the Torah and the Talmud, about the vast body of Jewish law known as Halakha, and about the mysterious traditions like Kabbalah and Hasidism. But if there's one thing that really stood out for me in the class, and that enriched not simply my knowledge of Judaism, but also my understanding of Unitarian Universalism, it is the way in which the Jewish tradition approaches the search for religious truth and meaning. And that approach is beautifully captured by that story from the Talmud. In the story, a legal dispute between two schools of thought has been going on for quite some time. God eventually resolves the dispute by deciding that while both sides have made arguments that are true, one side prevails because it has made its arguments with humility and goodwill, and is listened to and learned from the truths contained in the arguments by the other side. Think for a minute about what the story is telling us about truth. Truth is not found in one argument, in just one belief, or on just one side. Rather, it emerges in the interaction of different ideas, and God rules on behalf of the house of Hillel, because while the other side only listened to themselves and their own ideas, the house of Hillel listened to and learned from the wisdom of the other. And as I came to learn in that class, this spirit of ongoing and continuous argument, commentary, listening, and conversation is at the heart of the Jewish understanding of religious truth. While Judaism recognizes and affirms the sanctity and sacredness of the Torah, the truth in the text only emerges out of continuous exploration and interpretation of its meaning. That is why so much of the Jewish tradition is a vast and voluminous dialogue between different voices and commentators, a dialogue that both reveals the truth as it is understood at a particular moment in time, and that is always laying the groundwork for future generations to develop new truths and new ways of understanding God, the world, and ourselves. In Judaism, the search for truth and the conversation out of which truth emerges never ends. And it is this understanding of an approach to religious truth that inspires the title of today's sermon, A River or a Rock. For those faith traditions rooted in a single creed, religious truth resembles a rock, solid, unmoving, unchanging. Truth is like a piece of property that one faith can claim and own to the exclusion of others. But for traditions like Judaism, and as I will argue, Unitarian Universalism, religious truth resembles a river of continuous and ongoing revelation, interpretation, and conversation, a river that never stops moving and is always creating great and profound truths out of the interaction of countless ideas and voices. Religious truth, therefore, can never be fully or definitely found in just the words of one person, one sacred text, or even one religion, because the truth is always emerging, always unfolding, always carrying us along a marvelous journey of discovery and exploration. Part 2. In the first part of this morning's sermon, I distinguished between two approaches to religious truth: the rock or property model, which sees religious truth as being a single belief or set of beliefs that are eternal and unchanging and that belong exclusively to only one religion, and a river or pluralistic model that sees religious truth as a moving and evolving reality that emerges out of the interactions among a wide variety of influences and ideas, experiences and stories, conversation and dialogue. It is this understanding of religious truth that informs Unitarian Universalism. From our beginnings almost 500 years ago, during the Protestant Reformation, right up to the present day, Unitarian Universalism has been rooted in an understanding of truth that is open, continuous, pluralistic, and diverse. We see truth as living in and emerging out of all things and all people. Religious truth lives in sacred books like the Torah, the Quran, and the Bhagavad Gita. Religious truth lives in rhythms, regularities, and processes of nature and the universe. Religious truth lives in the words and deeds of prophetic and spiritual leaders like Jesus, Gandhi, and Mother Teresa. Religious truth lives in the creative imagination, in music, in the visual arts, and in works of literature and poetry. And religious truth most certainly lives in all of you, in your experiences, your stories, your joys and sorrows, your hopes and dreams. There is no limit, no end, to no boundary or barrier privileging one source of truth over another. In Unitarian Universalism, truth lives and is revealed in everything. I don't know if many of you are familiar with what is called the living tradition of Unitarian Universalism. The living tradition is a list of 6 sources of religious and spiritual truth lifted up as being especially important for Unitarian Universalists. Of course, this list of sources is not complete or exhaustive. No perfect or all-inclusive list exists or can ever be fully written in Unitarian Universalism. But what matters most is not how complete or exhaustive our list of sources can be. Rather, what matters most is that the river is always flowing, always moving, always revealing new sources, new currents, new ideas, new values, and new truths. And it is this reality of truth as evolving and emerging out of the diversity of life itself that explains why we Unitarian Universalists do not have a single creed or dogma. Reality is simply too diverse, too mysterious, too complex, and too dynamic to be captured by one statement, by one belief, by one text, or even by one religion. Our problem with creeds isn't that they are wrong. A creed, in fact, is one more source of spiritual truth and wisdom. Our problem with creeds is that they are absolute and not reflective of the dynamism and diversity of creation. With a creed, truth is final and the conversation is closed. In Unitarian Universalism, truth is never final and the conversation never ends. And that leads me back to that statement about Unitarian Universalism being a religion in which you can believe anything you want. I think our commitment to truth is always unfolding an ever-flowing river. To truth as the living product of the interaction of an infinite number of sources and of an unending conversation has led some, including many Unitarian Universalists, to conclude that when it comes right down to it, Unitarian Universalism is so wide open, so inclusive, and so free that we lack anything resembling shared truth. In Unitarian Universalism, when it comes down to truth, it is basically every person for themselves. Well, I'm here to tell you that nothing could be farther from, well, the truth. You see, in addition to sharing with the Jewish tradition an unending commitment to the search for truth, we also share with Judaism a belief in the existence and authority of a particular kind of religious truth, truth that emerges not from a single creed, but rather from the agreements we make with one another. You see, in both Judaism and Unitarian Universalism, truth is covenantal rather than creedal. When we say that Unitarian Universalism is a covenantal rather than a creedal faith, it simply means that you journey together guided not by a single creed written in the distant past, but instead by a set of promises and agreements that we make with each other about what we believe and how we will live. This is essentially what a covenant is, a set of promises or agreements human beings make with one another. Of course, covenants, like all agreements, are subject to review and revision. Covenants change as new ideas, new needs, and new realities emerge. But even though they are subject to change, covenants, and especially religious covenants, are affirmations of deep and profound truths, truths that can be just as meaningful and just as important as any creed. The truth that lives in our covenants defines and shapes who we are and how we live as Unitarian Universalists. Our covenants lift up and affirm beliefs and values that guide us as people of faith. Think for a moment about the most important covenant in Unitarian Universalism, the covenant that affirms our 7 Unitarian principles. These 7 principles are a reflection of who we are as people of faith. They emerged out of a long and inclusive dialogue among Unitarian Universalists about our most deeply held beliefs and convictions. The 7 principles are reviewed from time to time and can be changed. But while the content of these principles will undoubtedly change in the future, today they serve as an affirmation of our deepest truths and convictions and as a stirring call to live our lives as a shared journey rooted in those things we believe and value most: love and freedom, compassion and justice for all people and for this planet. So the next time you find yourself having a conversation about religion or what church you attend, I hope you'll share some of our approach to understanding of religious truth. I know that summing up Unitarian Universalism, in a sentence or two, the so-called elevator speech, is never easy because we don't have a creed. But we don't mistake our lack of a creed for an absence of truth or conviction. We have beliefs, we have convictions, we have deep and lasting truths. Of course, the truths we affirm today may someday change and are never carved in stone. But as people of faith, we find meaning and inspiration in the journey those principles challenge and inspire us to make. A journey that calls us to listen, to learn, and to grow, and that challenges us to build a world that is free and fair and just, not only for ourselves, but for the whole human family. These are our truths, our principles, our values. May they bring us meaning and purpose, hope and joy, this day and every day. So may it be. We offer the gentle reminder that this community of faith is supported only by your giving. We need each other, and in times such as these, we need each other even more. You can mail your contribution to the church at Post Office Box 494, Alton, Illinois 62002, or donate through the Givelify app or through PayPal, both links found on the church's webpage. Give what you will, for you are a generous people. Please join with me in our offering blessing displayed on the screen. May this offering equip us to inspire love and seek justice. Please join in singing our closing hymn, Light of Ages and of Nations, number 190 in the gray hymnal and displayed on the screen. We have some announcements for today. Brenda McCoy will be coming to St. Louis a couple of weeks to visit her son. A get-together with her is planned for Monday, November 15th at 11:30 a.m. at the Hibachi Grill Supreme Buffet in Baldwin, Missouri. The address is in the November newsletter. If you plan to come, please let Mary Johnson know by Friday, November 12th. The entity Sparks Women's Alliance will meet for lunch at 11:30 a.m. on Thursday, November 4th, at the Old Bakery Beer Company. Those women planning to attend should send their RSVP to Sandy Shaner. Please join with me in our unison words for extinguishing the chalice. The light of truth and meaning cannot be put out. We are keepers of this flame until we meet again. Our benediction is from Buddhist words. Be ye lamps unto yourselves. Be your own confidence. Hold to the truth within yourselves as to the only lamp. So may it be.